Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a question come up in the Q&As this week, and I realized this question was good enough to really get its own video. And this is a really common question. So I had a person basically ask, look, you're saying there's a limit to how much muscle most people can gain naturally, that it's somewhere, I think he said 15 pounds, but that's not it. I say it's 20 to 30 pounds, most people closer to 25. Again, 30 pounds for people who are really tall with a big frame, 20 pounds for people who have a smaller frame, a little bit shorter. If they don't train your legs, well, your upper body and biceps and stuff grow bigger because, 20 pounds of muscle, it's got to go somewhere, right? So if your limit's like 20 pounds, can you just put all the 20 pounds on the top? And this is a common question. I get this sort of question a lot. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And it's kind of funny because people do this, and I'm not sure what their logic is or motivation. That's where this gets tricky. Because you have to wonder, are they honestly just trying to figure out a way to get a bigger upper body? Is this really like, okay, maybe I found a secret? Like if I just don't train my legs, I'll get a bigger upper body? Because you see all these pro bodybuilders who can do that. They quit training their legs, their upper body gets bigger. Yeah, come on. Or is it because they really just don't want to train their legs? They're wanting purely show muscles. They don't care about their lower body at all. They don't care about performance or anything, and they just really don't want to have to squat or deadlift or do anything like that. They're trying to avoid this stuff. So it becomes hard to determine people's motives. So I'm going to just address the lighter first, and we're going to get into the reasons why the question is kind of silly. I mean, it's not silly because I guess some people are using logic with it, but they don't understand the premise of the limit, and that's where it creates the confusion. It has them ask a question that might seem unreasonable, but I can kind of see why they're asking it from that perspective. Now to the other one, you know what? If you don't want to train legs, don't train legs. I don't give a fuck. If you don't want to squat, you don't want to deadlift, you don't want to do some sort of big full body exercise that works your lower body and makes you stronger, that's fine. I don't care. If that's what you want to do, you don't need to justify it. I'm going to think you're a pussy. Most serious lifters are going to think you're a pussy, but you don't need to justify it to us. You don't have to justify it to us. If you just want to train your chest and arms or whatever and be in balance and be a weak pussy who's completely non-functional, you don't gain all the health benefits of training because a lot of the lower body stuff affects your health and fitness tremendously. You don't want those things. You don't want to be stronger. That's fine. That's your business. That's your business. Do what you want, but don't try to make crazy excuses like, well, I think my upper body will get bigger if I don't train my legs. Don't make crazy excuses. Just admit it. You don't want to squat. Okay, fine. Not the end of the world. Just be honest about it. We don't need to get ridiculous with it. You don't want to squat. Fine. Nobody cares. I mean, some of us are going to laugh at you, but that's okay. It's not your job to impress me, ultimately. I mean, that's just my opinion. I might think it's funny, but it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. People have their own opinions about me. So fucking what? Now, that being said, to the question. The problem with the question is that there's this assumption that your body itself has set some magical number limit, that it's just your body has said, I'm going to allow the entire body to gain X amount of muscle, and you get to pick where it goes. That's not how it works. Your frame, your total number of muscle cells, muscle insertions, and genetics are what set the limit. That limit isn't about your entire body. That's the sum of the various limits of the different muscles in your body. What I mean is, let's take the bicep, for example. Some people are more genetically gifted in the bicep than others, me not so much. But you have a given number of muscle fibers in your bicep that you're born with. Unless you use certain drugs or methods like that might increase the fiber count, you probably are going to have about the same number of fiber. Training doesn't seem to cause hyperplasia. You've got these number of fibers, you've got a distribution of them. Any given type of fiber can grow, but each type is only going to be able to grow so much, and it's going to reach a point of very rapid diminished returns, meaning a muscle fiber is going to get to a point to where without any change in hormones or drugs or something, just training, it is going to grow less and less and less over time. You're going to get to a practical limit. Does that mean that muscle can't continue to grow for years after the practical limit? Of course not. It's just going to be very small growth, so small that you might not notice it, meaning you could be talking of far less than 1% growth per year. like a 0.1% increase per year. That's still growth, but that's a practical limit. When it falls to the point to where we can no longer measure it, or we're talking about you gaining less than a pound of muscle in a year, we're pretty much at a practical limit. You know, when you gain 3 ounces of muscle in a year, of course you grew, but you're basically at a limit at that point. Practical limit. Doesn't mean it's a hard set in stone limit. So any given muscle in the body, based upon your frame, the size of the bone it's stretched across, the number of muscle fibers there, is going to gain less and less muscle over time. And based upon a person's frame and muscle fiber distribution and all that stuff, they're going to have a point to where those muscles, all those different muscles in their body, are going to reach a point of diminished returns. Now, doesn't mean that other muscles can't start growing again. Like you could have your biceps and chest and triceps reaching a limit, but you never trained legs. You come and start training your legs and see new gains in those legs again. They'll start growing really quick. All right, but those practical limits are for individual muscles. You know, each muscle is only going to grow so much on your frame. All right, and at a certain threshold, its growth is going to slow down, and it's going to slow down more, and it's only going to allow it to get so big before the muscle gains become so small that they're barely noticeable. When you start looking at that practical limit is getting close to what that is. It's not that your bicep, you could add 10 pounds of muscle to a bicep. You can't. Of course you can't. You'll never add 5 pounds of muscle to a bicep. Nobody has added 5 pounds of muscle to their bicep in the course of their training ever. It's just not a big enough muscle to hold 5 pounds of muscle in it, no matter what you do. Even with steroids. People don't have 5-pound biceps. Some people might from injecting tons of stuff in it, but that's not muscle growth. That's fake muscle, right? So your muscles each have practical limits. And the overall body, when you add it all up, when people have started to reach their major point of diminished returns, it's somewhere up into the 20-pound range. And obviously a taller person, it's higher. And so generally speaking, most people are going to be somewhere around 25 pounds of muscle. That is probably going to be their practical limit of what they're going to gain. I'm not saying they can't gain more, but it might take them 6 or 7 years to gain that next pound of muscle after 25 to get to 26. But that is pretty much a practical limit. All right, that has nothing to do with you getting to pick where those limits are. That's all the individual muscles added up in your body. That number assumes you trained everything. All right. If you only trained your upper body and not your lower body, that limit might be something like 10 or 12 pounds. It might be 13 pounds. It's going to be a lot less. It's going to be a lot less. Simply because you're dealing with limitations for individual muscles. That's where we get that. So no, you don't get to just say, okay, I'm not going to train my lower body so that my upper body will gain more of that limit muscle. It doesn't work that way. That limit isn't a pound limit set by the body. That pound limit that we come up with is the accumulation of all the limits added together. All right? And by that same token, you know, you're not going to be able to do like that guy did. What's that movie called? That ridiculous movie, the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Lady in the Water. You know, I think the guy's name was Reggie, where he only trained the right side of his body and not his left, so he looked completely untrained and had a big right side to his body. You know, you're not going to be able to just train the right side of your body and push it beyond what the limits had been had you trained both sides. It's not going to work that way. It's still going to have the same practical limits. And if anything, it'll be harder because you're having to use only unilateral exercises. It's going to give you less access to solid full body movements. It's going to actually be more difficult to do, if anything. You know what? The same thing could actually be said, though, of just training the upper body instead of the lower, because here's the thing. A lot of people want to talk about, oh, the hormone release, blah, blah, blah. You release testosterone, everything from these. Look, the meta-analysis on this shows that the amount of testosterone or growth hormone that you release as a result of training has zero correlation with muscle gains, even in the muscles that you train, let alone the rest of the body. It doesn't matter. What does matter is the fact that a lot of these big exercises work your upper body. I mean, think about it. Deadlift. Look how many muscles get worked by the deadlift. Look how many muscles get worked by the squat. Look how many muscles in the upper body get worked by the squat. And, you know, that's a big one, but then the deadlift is massive. At least 50% of the muscle mass you gain from the deadlift is in your upper body. Does it grow your legs? Yeah, it grows your legs decently well. Maybe not an ideal for maximum leg development, but the deadlift can put size on your legs, but it puts size on your upper body. Your lats, your forearms, Your biceps, that one's debated, but there is data on that. It's as good as a curl or a chin up? No, not even close, but it still does a little bit. Your traps. I mean, all these things, they hit the rest of the body. And the thing is, the best exercises, if you want to get the most efficiency in the gym and utility in the gym, you need to be using big, full body movements. All right, deadlifts, squats, front squats, push presses, power cleans. These are full body movements. These aren't upper or lower body exercises. They work tons of stuff through the body. And incidentally, these are some of the lifts that'll make you the biggest and strongest. All right, the biggest and strongest with the least amount of time in the gym, too. So when you really look at it from an efficiency perspective, there's so many benefits to doing these big full body movements. If a person says, hey, I don't feel like training my legs directly, okay, fine. But if you want to be explosive and powerful and athletic, in addition to that muscle you're gaining in your upper body, you need to do these exercises. You know, and truth be told, yeah, I used to be a very serious squatter. You guys have seen me squat over 500 pounds. But you know what? I quit squatting a couple years ago, really. I still have a massive lower body. But the exercises I do, most people don't think of as lower body exercises. What do I do for my legs? I deadlift and I push press. Of course, I power clean up my push presses. But those are actually, those exercises, if you're doing them with enough volume, will actually grow your legs significantly. But they're also upper body exercises. They're full body power movements. So what I would also suggest as an alternative for someone who's not wild about doing a bunch of just direct bodybuilder style leg training. Okay, you don't want to do a bunch of leg presses and leg extensions and leg curls. Okay, fine, don't. Come in and do big full body movements that work your entire body. Do some deadlifts, do some push presses. And you know what? The deadlift and the push press are fantastic for building the lower body. They can build your lower body decently well. But you know what? They're also amazing upper body builders at the same time. You could get the best of both worlds from the same exercises. So even if your main goal was that you wanted a bigger upper body, there's no reason you can't do these big, powerful, full body movements and still get plenty of leg work in if you chose to go that route also. So just throwing that out there as an option for guys who are like, I don't fucking want to squat and I don't want to leg press. Okay, fine. Do some push presses. Do some deadlifts. Because you're going to tell me those aren't going to make your upper body grow? They sure as hell will. And they're going to make you a lot stronger. They're going to make you more powerful. They're going to make you more athletic. Throw in some power cleans and you're set. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.